do's and don'ts of kiddos with visual impairments include, number one, you absolutely don't want to put their hands into any substances that are unexpected without a verbal warning or qualifier of what you are about to place the kiddo's arm or hands into. If you stick their hand into something slimy like water beads, or grab their hands and wash their hands without telling them that you're going to put soap on it or put their hand in water, that amount of sensory input through their hands is going to really overwhelm them. And the biggest thing is that the kiddos are using their hands to explore their environment. So they're literally using their hands as their eyes. And so the amount of sensitivity in their hands can be so much more than someone who is utilizing their eyesight in combination with the tactile or that feeling that comes through your hand. So what we don't want is for a kiddo to develop tactile defensiveness, which essentially is when an object or touch is placed through their hand, the child pulls away because that input of that surface on their hands or on their skin is too much for them to understand and to process through the receptors in the hand that goes to the brain. Really utilize your verbal qualifiers to prepare the child in order to improve their responsivity of a tactile sense. So say, hey Johnny, this is Miss Lauren, and today we're gonna put your hands in sand, and it's gonna feel a little gritty, but it's gonna be really fun. You get to choose how long you keep your hands in the sand. I qualified who I was. I don't wanna just come up to a kiddo and start moving their body. I wanna come up to a kiddo and say, hey Johnny, it's Miss Lauren. We're gonna work on therapy today. Allow them to have some of that processing time, because kiddos with visual impairments actually require more processing time because they don't have that visual input coming in to tell them where their body is in space, who's working with them, what changes in the environment are around them, and what objects they're exploring. So you really want to give some pauses after you give some verbal instruction or present an object to a kiddo. Baby Eric, I'm gonna be our model today, and I'm working with him maybe in a school environment, maybe an outpatient setting, and the mama placed him on the floor. Before I interact with baby Eric, I'm gonna come near him and I'm gonna say, hi Eric, it's Miss Lauren. We're gonna play today. And then I'm gonna give him a little bit of time in order to kind of process that. And now it doesn't matter if baby Eric is a baby, or if he's, 3 or 4 years old, or 6 or 7 or 18. And it's really, these things are kind of universal for anyone with a visual impairment. And then I'm gonna say, we're gonna go into sitting. So I'm gonna help you sit up, okay? And then I'm gonna say, okay, so first I'm gonna put my hand underneath your head, and then I'm gonna help you sit up. Now me and baby Eric are sitting up. Another really great strategy in helping kiddos explore their environment and then thus learn is by supporting in a hand under hand fashion. The adult's hand is going to be underneath the hand of the child. The child's hand is going to be on top, and you're going to essentially be the gravity to guide the child. But what this allows is an increased ability for the child to choose whether they maintain their participation in a task. Because if for some reason they don't want to, or they don't like it, or it's too much for them, they can just lift their hand off, as opposed to a hand over hand method, which is essentially the adult's hand being on top of the child's hand and guiding it this way, which doesn't allow for a child to really pull away. It's almost a little bit more of a traumatic experience for the kiddo to kind of pull down, because typically when we pull away for something, we're really pulling in an up and out manner. And so if they try to go up and out and your hand is on top of their hand, they have to almost rip their hands off of yours. And that is less of a gentle experience for the kiddo when they're exploring. Our goal is to work on reaching. We want to give a little bit of tactile cueing into the hand of different textures, and that's why we have a textured ball as opposed to a smooth ball. I'm going to place this ball in front of, or kind of to the side, if we're going to work on his right arm. And I'm going to say, Eric, we're going to work on playing with this ball. I'm going to bring your arm up. So I'm going to put my arm underneath your arm, and we're gonna reach over. Do you feel that ball? And then I'm gonna support underneath his elbow slash forearm. If the kiddo has good support and good strength of their elbow wrist, if they can hold their arm up like this, I'm going to give them less support. So I'm going to give them support at the elbow so that they can kind of move and explore here. If they don't really have good control of the shoulder, I'm going to support all the way down to the hand so that they can just kind of move their fingers and wrist, but I'm supporting the rest of the weight of their arm. And then we can kind of allow baby Eric to play on his own. We're going to give him some support. So I'm going to place his hand here, and then I'm going to wait and just see what baby Eric does. Does he explore it on his own? How long does it take? I'm looking at his typical response time. So giving him 30 to 60 seconds, really quite a bit of response time so that he has the ability to kind of explore at his own pace, process that information, and then decide maybe he wants to kind of roll the ball or do some other more advanced motions. The other thing that we're going to do with kiddos who have visual impairment is we're going to bring in the other senses. So for baby Eric, if he has a visual impairment, then he's going to have input through the tactile or the touch sensors. He's also going to have proprioception, which is essentially where his body is in space. And also we're going to bring in his auditory senses. So we're going to find objects that make noise. And so that's going to be another engaging environment, depending on how severe the kiddo's visual impairment is and also just their unique presentation of who they are as a kiddo. Adding in noise and that tactile sensation can be a little bit much. So you really want to tailor it to the kiddo's ability. If the kiddo is doing really well with that tactile touch, you can bring in music. Sometimes kiddos like music more than they like tactile touch, and so you just have to vary the environment based on what they can tolerate, and then also encourage some of those more difficult sensations for that kiddo. What I love about this thing is that you can use it for kiddos with visual impairments or without. You can place it on a higher surface and then put the balls on the lower surface and work on kind of squat recovery tasks. There's tons of different options that you can do with basically little objects and buckets, especially if they make noise. The kiddos will find them more fun. So, okay, baby Eric, we're gonna put the ball into the bucket. Okay, Miss Lauren's gonna show you first. Ball is in my hand, and then it goes into the bucket. And when I place it in the bucket, it makes like a bubbly fish noise, like a water noise. Okay, baby Eric, it's your turn. So I'm gonna support him underneath, hand under hand. You may need to help them hold the ball, or they might be able to hold it themselves. Again, if they're able to hold the ball themselves and hold their arm against gravity, then you're gonna wanna support them at the elbow. Otherwise, you're gonna wanna support them at their whole arm. Okay, we're gonna put it in the bucket, and then I'm gonna wait to see if baby Eric initiates the movement himself. If he does, I'm gonna go with him. If he does not, after 30 to 60 seconds, I'm gonna say, okay, now we're gonna reach into the bucket, and I'm gonna weight shift him forward while I reach, and then we'll drop it into the bucket. Got a little dance moves. If the kiddo has a lot of tone, they might struggle. You might have to like kind of work to get the ball into their hands if they're in a fisted position a lot. One way to make that easier is to push their hand down. They'll probably still be a little bit flexed here, but you'll be able to kind of work that hand or work that ball into their hands more. And then once you're over here, you can kind of encourage that wrist flexion and really like help them release the ball into the bucket. So the biggest takeaways from this video are going to be, number one, hand under hand method. Number 2, always verbalize or give the child cues before you place their hand into a different sensation, such as lotion, water, sand, grass, anything that is unexpected. Number 3, always verbalize before you're going to move a child, whether it just be their arm or pick them up, move their chair, anything like that. What that really does is it decreases anxiety for the kiddo and allows them to understand how their body is moving in space, what support they're receiving, and also who is providing that support. And number 4, make sure that you are providing enough processing time for the kiddo, up to 30 to 60 seconds. Definitely time that so you know whether you're waiting long enough, and just go based on data of if a kiddo is typically making an initiation of movement or a start to movement at 10 seconds pretty frequently, then you can go into that 10 seconds to 20 seconds range. If it takes them 45 seconds to 60 seconds each time, that's going to be the window that you want to work within, and then that you're just giving them a variety of textures. I'll put some different toys in the description that can help. And then you're also going to want different types of sensations, and then also combining those depending on a kiddo's tolerance. I hope you found this video helpful. Definitely make sure you like it and subscribe. It will really help other parents and therapists find this channel so that they can utilize these strategies in order to help more kiddos. Thanks, guys.